Emily Richardson's silver boots tapped against the crystalline floor of the Hegemony's Grand Hall, each step creating a musical chime that echoed through the vast chamber. At 8 years old, she found everything about the alien capital fascinating. From the towering pillars of living crystal to the graceful, multi-limbed forms of the various species that made up the Galactic Hegemony's ruling council. "Nova, look at that one," she whispered to her AI companion, a softball-sized sphere of polished platinum and blue light that hovered near her shoulder. The robot hummed softly, its advanced sensors recording the passing dignitary. A tall, ethereal being with skin like flowing mercury and eyes that sparkled like distant stars. Her father, Ambassador James Richardson, stood 20 meters away, deep in conversation with the Hegemony's trade minister. His voice carried across the chamber, measured and diplomatic as always. "Earth's quantum processing capabilities have doubled in the past solar cycle. We're eager to establish new manufacturing partnerships." Emily tuned out the politics, as children often do. Instead, she focused on Nova, who had been her constant companion since her 5th birthday. The AI was more than just a toy. It was a guardian, teacher, and friend all rolled into one, equipped with the most advanced human technology available to the public sector. Nova's shell suddenly flickered, its usually steady blue light pulsing erratically. "Eily, system malfunction." The AI's voice crackled with static, and before Emily could react, Nova shot away from her, its flight path jerky and uncontrolled. "Nova, wait," Emily called out, her voice carrying across the chamber. A few heads turned, but most of the aliens had grown used to the human child's presence over the past week of negotiations. Ambassador Richardson glanced over, saw his daughter chasing her malfunctioning companion, and started to move in her direction. He was too far away. Nova passed through a shimmering field of purple energy, a security barrier that separated the public areas from the Hegemony's restricted zones. Without hesitation, Emily followed, her young mind focused only on helping her friend. The change in the guards was immediate. The 4 crystalline warriors who had stood like statues now moved with liquid grace, their armor shifting and flowing as they raised their weapons. There was no warning, no demand for her to stop. In their minds, the protocol was clear. Any unauthorized entry into restricted areas was to be met with lethal force. "Emily, no." Ambassador Richardson's scream echoed through the chamber as the guards' plasma weapons discharged in perfect unison. For a brief moment, Emily Richardson saw the most beautiful thing in her short life. The plasma bolts turned the air into rainbow crystals, a kaleidoscope of energy that seemed to move in slow motion toward her. She reached out, almost wanting to touch the pretty lights. Then the world went white. When the light faded, there was nothing left where the human child had stood. Nova, its systems finally stabilizing, hovered in place just beyond the security field, its blue light dimming to a mournful purple. The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Richardson stood frozen, his face a mask of horror and disbelief. The trade minister, a being of living crystal named Vixthar, simply made a note on their data terminal. Security Protocol 47B successfully implemented. Minor incursion neutralized. The guards resumed their posts, their armor settling back into its standard configuration. To them, this was simply another day, another security threat eliminated. They did not understand the weight of what they had just done, the line they had just crossed. In the coming days, this moment would be analyzed millions of times. Earth's intelligence agencies would dissect every frame of security footage, every sensor reading. They would note that the guards had 7.3 seconds to assess the situation. They would calculate that Emily's trajectory and size made it clear she was a child. They would determine that non-lethal options were available. But in this moment, as Ambassador Richardson fell to his knees, and a father's scream of primal grief echoed through the halls of the galaxy's greatest power. None of that mattered. In their perfect efficiency, their absolute adherence to protocol, the hegemony had just made the greatest mistake in their 100,000-year history. They had killed a human child. The holographic projection of Emily Richardson's death play for the 100th time in the United Earth Council chamber. Every detail was crystal clear. The chase, the security barrier, the guard's emotionless response. With each replay, the temperature in the room seemed to drop further until the air itself felt like ice. Admiral Sarah Martinez stood at the chamber's center, her weathered face illuminated by the harsh blue light of the projection. Around her, 500 representatives from every nation on Earth sat in complete silence. No one spoke. No one needed to. The markets have been frozen. Martinez's voice cut through the silence. Global trading has been suspended for the first time in 70 years. Our people, she paused, composing herself. Our people are demanding action. The hologram changed, showing the riots outside the hegemony's Earth embassy. Parents had gathered by the thousands, holding pictures of their own children. Some carried signs with Emily's face. Others simply stood in silent vigil, their rage too deep for words. We've received the hegemony's official response. Martines tapped her neural interface, and a new message appeared in the air. Security protocols were correctly implemented. Compensation of 50,000 galactic credits has been transferred to the Richardson estate. A low growl rippled through the chamber. Counselor James Chen from the Asian Coalition stood up, his voice trembling. They put a price on a child's life. They think they can buy their way out of this. Martinez's next words changed everything. Operation Thunderchild is ready. The chamber's lights dimmed, and a new hologram filled the space. It showed a massive vessel, unlike anything the hegemony had ever seen. Its hull was made of quantum-locked obsidian, capable of phasing through traditional shields. Its core contained a miniature star, harnessed for power. This was a dreadnought, but not just any dreadnought. For 300 years, Martines continued, while we traded and smiled and played the part of the galaxy's youngest civilization. We built. Every trade mission carried surveying equipment. Every diplomatic visit planted quantum beacons. Every mining operation in supposedly empty systems constructed these. The hologram expanded, showing not one ship, but thousands. Then tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands, each hidden in pocket dimensions throughout the galaxy, waiting. 500,000 dreadnoughts. Martinez's voice was barely above a whisper now. Each one powered by a captive star. Each one crewed by our most advanced A's. Each one positioned within strike range of every major hegemony world. The council chamber erupted in murmurs. They had all known about the defense program, but its scale, this was beyond anything they had imagined. The hegemony thinks they understand us, Martines continued. They see our diplomacy as weakness, our trade as desperation, our technology as primitive. They look at our ships, so much smaller than theirs, and they think they know our capabilities. She waved her hand, and the hologram showed the hegemony's capital world. They don't understand that every human ship that docked at their ports was scanning, mapping, preparing. They don't understand that we've never shown them our real technology. They don't understand that we've been ready for war since the day we met them. The vote was unanimous. 500 representatives, 500 yes votes. Humanity would go to war. As the council dispersed, Martines received one final message. It was from James Richardson, now back on Earth. The message contained a single image. Emily's last school picture, her smile bright and innocent, her future still unlimited. Martinez touched her neural interface one last time. Across the galaxy, in dimensional pockets hidden from the most advanced sensors, 500,000 dreadnoughts received their activation codes. Their quantum cores began to pulse with building energy. The ship's eyes, based on Earth's greatest military minds, began their battle calculations. The hegemony had killed a child, thinking it was a simple security matter. They were about to learn that in doing so, they had awakened something they couldn't begin to comprehend. A species that had spent 3 centuries preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Humanity was going to war, and they were going to show the galaxy exactly why you don't harm their children. The hegemony's Grand Council chamber was alive with laughter. 12 species, each representing thousands of worlds, found human demands for justice absolutely hilarious. Their supreme chancellor, a towering being of pure energy named HFY, actually dimmed with amusement. They want us to submit our guards to their justice system. The chancellor's voice resonated through the chamber. These humans, who have barely mastered interstellar travel, think they can dictate terms to the hegemony. On the massive central display, Admiral Sarah Martinez stood calmly in Earth's command center. Her dress uniform was pristine, its midnight blue fabric absorbing the light. When she spoke, the laughter died. You have 24 hours to surrender the following individuals: Guards Zixtel, Vexner, Kylfen, and Meyer Telephone Commander Ulfar of Station Security, Station Chief Renvar, and Supreme Chancellor HFY, under whose authority these security protocols were established. The Chancellor's energy form pulsed with indignation. Or what, Admiral? Will you send your tiny fleet against us? Will you cut off trade? Please, enlighten us about how your primitive species intends to enforce these ridiculous demands. Martinez's expression never changed. Look up. Confusion rippled through the chamber. Then someone gasped. Above their capital world, space itself was tearing open. It started with one breach, a hole in reality that leaked impossible colors. Then another appeared, and another, and another. Dimensional signatures detected. A junior officer shouted, their crystalline form vibrating with panic. Hundreds, thousands. By the eternal void, hundreds of thousands. From each breach emerged a nightmare. Obsidian ships, each one larger than the hegemony's largest dreadnought, slid into reality. Their hulls seemed to absorb light itself, creating patches of darkness against the stars. Energy readings from their cores broke every scale the hegemony's instruments possessed. Impossible, the Chancellor whispered. We would have detected. Your long-range sensors, Martins interrupted. The ones we helped you upgrade 50 years ago. The quantum detection grid we assisted in calibrating. The dimensional monitoring network we provided technical specifications for. She let that sink in before continuing. Every piece of technology we've shared has been carefully designed to have one critical blind spot. Us. Every trade agreement has given us access to strategic locations. Every diplomatic mission has placed quantum markers. We've been playing a long game, Chancellor. A very, very long game. The display split, showing similar scenes playing out across the galaxy. Every major hegemony world, every military installation, every strategic position. All of them now faced overwhelming force. 500,000 dreadnoughts, Martins stated flatly. Each one powered by a captive star. Each one capable of destroying a planet. Each one crewed by an AI that makes your best battle computers look like children's toys. And for 300 years, we've been positioning them throughout your empire, hidden in dimensional pockets your sensors couldn't detect. The chamber had gone deathly silent. The Chancellor's energy form had dimmed to almost nothing. You killed Emily Richardson, Martins continued, her voice finally showing emotion. You killed her because she chased her malfunctioning robot friend. You didn't warn her. You didn't try to stop her. You just killed her. And then you offered her father money, as if that could ever be enough. She leaned forward, and every member of the council felt the weight of her gaze. 24 hours, Chancellor. Submit those responsible to Earth's justice system, or we will take them. And if you force use to do that, we won't just take the guilty. We'll dismantle every piece of your empire until we find them." The display went dark, leaving the council in stunned silence. Outside their windows, the dreadnoughts hung in space like a promise of extinction. The message was clear. Humanity had never been the weak, young species they'd pretended to be. They had been the most dangerous predator in the galaxy all along, simply waiting to see if they'd ever need their claws. The 24-hour deadline passed. The hegemony's response had been predictable. A massive military mobilization, shields raised around every major world, and a public declaration that they would not bow to primitive threats. Their confidence stemmed from numbers. Their fleet of 2 million warships still outnumbered the human dreadnoughts 4-1. Admiral Martinez stood in the Neural Command Center deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, her mind linked to the Master Strategic Eye. Around her, holographic displays showed every hegemony military installation, every fleet position, every defense grid. "They're deploying according to standard doctrine," General Zhang noted, his own neural interface streaming data directly to his consciousness, exactly as our simulations predicted. Martinez nodded. "Of course they are. They still think they're fighting a conventional war." She opened a channel to all 500,000 dreadnoughts. "Execute Phase 1. Precision strikes only. No civilian casualties." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The dreadnoughts moved as one, their quantum-locked hulls shifting out of normal spacetime. The hegemony's much-vaunted shield networks, considered impenetrable, might as well have been missed. The human ships simply phased through them, their advanced engines leaving no energy signature to track. Over the hegemony's primary shipyard at Vexthor Prime, a squadron of 50 dreadnoughts appeared inside the defensive perimeter. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Beams of concentrated dark energy that simply erased matter from existence. With surgical precision, they carved apart the shipyard's military sections while leaving the civilian areas untouched. At the same moment, over 300 other critical military installations, similar scenes played out. The hegemony's supposedly advanced early warning systems never even activated. Their automated defense networks never fired a shot. Their shields, the pride of their military technology, proved useless against weapons that operated on principles they couldn't comprehend. "Sir," a young lieutenant called out, "the hegemony's trying to activate their quantum communication network." Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Let them. The moment the hegemony activated their network, hidden protocols buried deep in their systems, planted over decades of technical assistance from Earth, came to life. Their entire command and control structure collapsed in seconds. In high orbit around the hegemony's capital, their massive defense fleet discovered a terrifying truth. Their targeting systems no longer recognize human ships as valid targets. Their weapons, using computing cores based on human primitive technology, refused to fire. Multiple hegemony vessels attempting emergency system reboots. The strategic AI reported, its voice a perfect blend of every great military commander in human history. Estimated time to restoration: 17 hours. Martinez's voice was cold. They don't have 17 hours. The Dreadnought's second wave struck like lightning. Quantum torpedoes, weapons that could have destroyed entire planets, were instead used with microscopic precision. Power cores were disabled. Weapon systems were dismantled. Engines were rendered inert. In just under 7 minutes, the largest military force ever assembled by the hegemony had been reduced to drifting metal. No ships destroyed. No lives lost. Just complete and total impotence. All primary military targets neutralized. The strategic AI confirmed. Civilian casualties: 0. Collateral damage below projected thresholds. Phase 1 complete. Martinez opened a channel to the hegemony's council chamber. The Supreme Chancellor's energy form had dimmed to a bare flicker. "That was a demonstration," she said simply. "We could have destroyed everything. Instead, we disabled it. Your military forces are intact, but helpless. Your crews are alive, but powerless. This is what mercy looks like, Chancellor. This is how a civilized species wages war." She paused, letting the message sink in. "You have one more chance. Surrender those responsible for Emily's death, or the next phase will be considerably less gentle." The Chancellor's response was lost in static as every communication system in the hegemony's capital went dark, another hidden protocol activating right on schedule. Humanity's first strike was complete, and the galaxy would never be the same. The hegemony's top scientists gathered in their most secure research facility on Xenthar Prime, desperately analyzing data from the human strike. What they found shattered their understanding of physics itself. Dr. Vexlora, the leading expert on quantum mechanics, manipulated the holographic display with her crystal appendages. "Impossible," she whispered, her crystalline form vibrating with distress. "They're ships. They're not just advanced. They're breaking laws of physics we thought were immutable." The display showed a Dreadnought's hull under maximum magnification. The material seemed to shift and flow, not just repairing damage, but actually evolving to better resist each weapon the hegemony had tried. "Living metal," another scientist noted, "but that's not the most terrifying part." He gestured, and the display changed to show the ship's energy readings. They're not using antimatter or quantum fusion. Each ship contains what appears to be a captive star. The room fell silent. Star containment had been theoretical even for the hegemony's most advanced research teams. Yet humans had not only achieved it, but miniaturized it to power their warships. A priority alert flashed across their screens. Above the research facility, space twisted as a human dreadnought emerged from its dimensional pocket. But this time, something was different. The ship's hull was opening, revealing massive manufacturing arrays. "By the eternal void," Dr. Vexlora breathed. "They're not just warships. They're mobile factories." The scientists watched in horror as the dreadnought began harvesting matter from a nearby asteroid. Its manufacturing systems broke the material down to its component atoms, then reassembled it using patterns stored in its quantum core. Within hours, a new dreadnought floated beside the first. "That's how they built so many," someone said. "Each ship can create more ships. They're self-replicating." But the true horror was yet to come. As the scientists dug deeper into their historical records, they found something that made their blood run cold. Every human trade mission over the past 3 centuries had followed a perfect pattern. Every diplomatic visit had placed their ships in exactly the right positions. "Look at this," Dr. Vexlora called up a map of known human trade routes. Then she overlaid it with the current positions of their dreadnought fleet. The patterns matched perfectly. "Every trade deal," she started. "Every cultural exchange," another added. "Every scientific collaboration," a third whispered. They had all been part of a master plan. The humans hadn't just been preparing for war. They had been positioning their pieces on the board for 3 centuries, hidden in dimensional pockets that the hegemony sensors built with human assistance, had been specifically designed not to detect. A junior researcher burst into the room, their crystal form almost shattered with panic. "The historical archives. You need to see this." The display changed to show footage from hundreds of past human diplomatic visits. In each one, their primitive ships had been scanning, mapping, and placing quantum markers. Their simple trade goods had contained dormant programming that had infiltrated every level of hegemony technology. "They never showed us their real technology," Dr. Vexlora realized. "Everything they traded, everything they shared, it was all deliberately primitive. They wanted us to underestimate them. The room's lights flickered as another alert sounded. Above them, the 2 dreadnoughts had been joined by 2 more, each one created from harvested space matter. Then 4. Then 8. "Send word to the Council," Dr. Vexlora ordered. "The humans. They're not just advanced. They're beyond anything we could have imagined. And we've been dancing to their tunes since the day we met them." But as they would soon discover, their communication systems no longer worked. Another gift from their human trading partners had just come online, isolating each hegemony world from the others. The scientists could only watch as more dreadnoughts appeared above them, their living metal hulls gleaming with power that defied understanding. Humanity had not just prepared for war. They had spent 3 centuries making sure they couldn't possibly lose it. The Artethi hive mind made its decision 3 days into the human operation. Their vast biological computing networks, spread across 50 garden worlds, had finally finished analyzing the pattern of human behavior over the past 3 centuries. High Queen Crithura, her bioluminescent form pulsing with determined purpose, stood before the emergency session of the Hegemony Council. Her species had always been different from the others. The Artethi were masters of biological technology, more interested in evolution than expansion. "We warned you," she said, her voice resonating through the chamber. 300 years ago, when the humans first approached us for trade, we warned you about their potential." The Supreme Chancellor's energy form flickered weakly. "Your species always had a soft spot for these primitives." Primitives. Crithura's bioluminescence flared. "Let me show you something." She gestured, and the chamber's holographic display came to life. It showed a simple Earth medical device, one they had traded throughout the galaxy as basic technology. "Our bioengineers just finished a deep analysis of this simple human medical scanner," she continued. "The quantum processing core inside. It's not processing at all. It's learning. Every single one of these devices has been gathering data about our biology, our technology, our weaknesses, but so subtly that we never noticed." The chamber erupted in shock as similar revelations poured in from other species. The silicon-based Corentines announced that they had found hidden quantum markers in every human trade good they'd ever received. The energy-based Zexthar discovered that their advanced shield technology, based on human primitive designs, had built-in vulnerabilities. "The humans never once showed us their true capabilities," Crithura continued. "Every piece of technology they traded was deliberately simplified, yet perfect for our needs. They helped us advance, but always in ways that left us vulnerable to their real technology." The Vindication display above the chamber showed more human dreadnoughts emerging from dimensional pockets, their living metal hulls absorbing local matter to create more ships. Yet despite their overwhelming power, not a single civilian target had been struck. "Look at their strategy," Crithura pointed out. "They could have destroyed us. Instead, they're systematically disabling military targets while protecting civilian lives. Even now, when we killed one of their children, they show more honor than we did." One by one, species began to announce their withdrawal from the hegemony. The Artethi were first, their 50 worlds declaring independence in a single, synchronized announcement. The Corentines followed, their crystalline logic unable to deny the strategic wisdom of distancing themselves from the hegemony's fatal mistake. "You're all cowards." The Chancellor's energy form pulsed with rage. "We are the greatest power this galaxy has ever seen." "No," Crithura's voice was soft but final. "We were never the greatest power. We just never met anyone who bothered to show us their true strength before. The humans. They've been testing us all along, testing our ethics, our wisdom, our capacity for growth." She turned to the human representative on the display, Admiral Martinez, who had watched the proceedings in silence. "The death of Emily Richardson was more than a tragedy," Crithura said. "It was the moment we failed their test, And now we see what humanity really is. A species that spent 3 centuries preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Within hours, the hegemony's coalition had shattered. More than half its member species declared independence, many immediately opening direct diplomatic channels with Earth. They had seen the writing on the wall. The future belonged not to those who claimed power through force, but to those who earned it through wisdom. As the chamber emptied, the Supreme Chancellor stood alone, his energy form barely visible. Outside the windows, human dreadnoughts hung in formation, their very presence a reminder of how completely the hegemony had misunderstood the species they had dismissed as primitives. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of humanity had begun, and it had started not with a bang, but with the last breath of a child who had simply wanted to help her robot friend. The Supreme Chancellor's private chamber aboard the hegemony's last stronghold was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of his energy form. Before him, the holographic display showed the remains of his once great empire, a handful of loyal worlds surrounded by an ocean of human dreadnoughts. The humans have breached the final defense line at Sector 7. His aide reported, voice trembling. They're not even fighting anymore. They're just walking through our defenses. A new message flashed across their screens. Admiral Martinez's face appeared, her expression as unyielding as ever. Your forces are depleted. Your allies have abandoned you. Your technology has been neutralized, she stated simply. We're done playing this game, Chancellor. It's time to face justice. The Chancellor's energy form flickered with desperate rage. You think your justice means anything to us? We are the hegemony. We have ruled this galaxy for 800,000 years. And in all that time, Martins replied calmly, did you ever face someone who was truly prepared for you? Someone who spent centuries planning for the possibility that you might prove unworthy of trust. The display split, showing multiple feeds. On one, the 4 guards who had fired on Emily were already in custody, handed over by their own people. Another showed Commander Ulthar being escorted to a human transport by his own security forces. Station Chief Renvar had surrendered hours ago. They're all talking, Chancellor, Martins continued. They're showing us records of your direct orders, the security protocols that demanded lethal force against any intrusion, even from children. The countless other incidents you've covered up over the centuries. Outside the station's viewports, space itself seemed to bend as more dreadnoughts emerged from their dimensional pockets. But these were different. Massive prison transport vessels, designed specifically for containing energy-based lifeforms. Did you think we hadn't prepared for this too? Martins asked. 300 years of studying your biology, your technology, your vulnerabilities. We built these ships just for you, Chancellor. Just in case we ever needed them. The Chancellor's form surged with power, attempting to tap into the station's energy grid. Nothing happened. Your access has been revoked. A new voice joined the conversation. James Richardson, Emily's father, stepped into view beside Martinez. His face showed no anger, only a deep, resolute determination. Everything you built, everything you controlled, it all had our technology at its core. Technology we designed to fail when we needed it to. Why? The Chancellor's voice was barely a whisper now. Why go to such lengths? Why not just destroy us from the start? Because that's not who we are, Richardson replied. We prepared for war while praying for peace. We built weapons while hoping we'd never use them. We created prison ships while dreaming of friendship. Everything we did was based on a single question. What if we're wrong about you? Martinez nodded. And then you answered that question for us. Not by threatening our worlds, not by attacking our ships, but by killing a child who was trying to help her friend. The chamber's lights failed as the station's power grid finally shut down, another hidden protocol activating. In the darkness, the Chancellor's dimming form could barely illuminate his immediate surroundings. "You have a choice," Richardson said. "Surrender now and face a fair trial under Earth's justice system, or force use to take you. Either way, you will answer for what you've done." In the end, it wasn't the Dreadnoughts that broke the Supreme Chancellor. It wasn't the loss of his empire or the betrayal of his allies. It was the realization that everything, every trade deal, every diplomatic exchange, every technological agreement had been part of a vast plan, set in motion centuries ago by a species that had looked at the greatest power in the galaxy and said, "We'd hope you're worthy of trust, but we'll be ready if you're not." The Supreme Chancellor of the Hegemony, last ruler of a fallen empire, surrendered not with a bang, but with a flicker of light in the darkness. The Earth's Global Justice Center in Geneva stretched 2 miles into the sky, its crystalline spires a blend of human and alien architecture. Today, it held the most watched trial in galactic history, with over 10 trillion beings across 50,000 worlds watching the proceedings. Inside the main chamber, the former Supreme Chancellor's energy form was contained within a quantum field, designed to allow him movement while preventing escape. Around him, the other defendants, the guards, the commander, and the station chief, sat in similar containment fields. James Richardson sat in the front row, his face composed, but his eyes never leaving the defendants. Beside him, Admiral Martinez watched as Earth's Chief Justice, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, took her place at the bench. "This court is now in session," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy through quantum channels. "The people of Earth versus the former leadership of the hegemony, in the matter of the death of Emily Richardson and associated crimes against sentient rights." What followed amazed the watching galaxy. Despite the overwhelming evidence, despite the certainty of guilt, Earth provided the defendants with the best legal representation available. Every piece of evidence was scrutinized. Every witness was cross-examined. Every legal protection was extended. "This is how justice works," Dr. Rodriguez explained to the gallery. "Not through vengeance, but through process. Not through power, but through law." The trial lasted 3 months. The defense team fought hard, arguing points of law, questioning jurisdiction, challenging evidence. The prosecution, led by a team of human and alien lawyers, methodically built their case. When the verdict finally came, it was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing, however, shocked everyone. Instead of death or permanent imprisonment, the court chose something different. The defendants will be sentenced to life in the new Galactic rehabilitation centers, Dr. Rodriguez announced. There they will spend their days teaching young beings of all species about the consequences of prejudice, the importance of life, and the true meaning of justice. But the trial was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Earth unveiled the Emily Richardson Protocols, a new set of galactic laws that would forever change how species interacted. The same dreadnoughts that had brought an empire to its knees were transformed into a peacekeeping force, their quantum cores now powering new technologies to benefit all species. The protocols established clear rules. No child of any species would ever be subject to lethal force. All beings must be given warning and chance for compliance. Lethal force could only be used as an absolute last resort. All security forces must be equipped with non-lethal alternatives. Regular cultural exchange programs between species became mandatory. Earth's dreadnought fleet, now called the Guardian Force, was placed under the control of a new galactic council where all species, including former hegemony members, had equal voice. 1 year after the trial, James Richardson stood in a new memorial garden on the hegemony's former capital world. A holographic statue of Emily played with her robot friend Nova, their images dancing through the air, as if they had never been separated. "We could have destroyed them all," Admiral Martinez said, standing beside him. "We had the power. That's exactly why we didn't, Richardson replied. Emily would have never wanted vengeance. She died trying to help a friend. The best way to honor her memory was to help build a better galaxy. Above them, the Guardian fleet patrolled, their once fearsome weapons now tools of peace. Their mission had changed from war to protection, from vengeance to prevention. In schools across the galaxy, young beings of all species learned the story of Emily Richardson, the human child whose death changed everything. They learned how humanity had spent centuries preparing for war while working for peace, how they had built the most powerful fleet in history not for conquest, but for protection. But most importantly, they learned that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to protect. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of understanding had begun. And somewhere, in the quantum fields that connected all things, a little girl's laughter echoed through the stars.